week 12 of the fantasy football season. He has a few kickers. I have his sleepers this week. The first guy, Blake Grubb, of the New Orleans Saints. Grubb, it's been a decent rookie season for him this year. He's got 4 games with double-digit fantasy points in the last few weeks before they went on bye. Week 8 at Indianapolis, 8. Week 9 versus Chicago, 7 fantasy points. And Week 10 in Minnesota, 4. So this week, a good matchup. Indoor ball game at the Atlanta Falcons. They give up the 7th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. And obviously, this same team had a lot of confidence coming into the year to trade Will Lutz away and give Blake Grubb the starting job at the kicking position. So in a game where it's going to be a grinded-out type of game between these two teams, I believe we're going to see mid-teens, low 20s between the Falcons and the Saints here. And Grubb's going to get a few opportunities. Like I said, this offense stalls out a decent amount as well. So right now, he's available in 94% of fantasy leagues. And if you need a kicker in the deepest of leagues, he's a sleeper this week. The next kicker, Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears. Cairo Santos, it's been a solid year for Santos where he's up there in the top 10 in fantasy points, believe it or not, at the kicking position. In the last 2 weeks, he's put on monster performances. Week 10 versus Carolina, 12. Week 11 at Detroit, 17. And this week, a good matchup at Minnesota Vikings that give up the 6th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So this is an indoor game. We know the Chicago Bear team, they've stalled out pretty much all season long. I know Justin Fields is back in the lineup. They're going to be scoring a little bit more points and touchdowns on some drives than field goals. But like I said, Santos has been an accurate kicker. He's been with the Chicago Bear team for many years. And it seems like each and every season, he's been a pretty decent kicker. So right now, he's available in 98% of fantasy leagues. And he's had 2 good weeks in a row here. I think Santos can help fantasy owners in deeper leagues as well as a sleeper option. And the third and final kicker I have as a sleeper is Will Lutz, the Denver Broncos. Will Lutz with a game he had last week with 17 fantasy points. In the last 3 out of 4 games, he's had monster performances. Week 7 versus Green Bay, 15. Week 8 versus the Chiefs, 4. Week 10 at Buffalo, 13. And Week 11, like I mentioned, versus the Vikings, 17 points. So this week here versus the Cleveland Browns, that's a bend but don't break type of defense where it's tough to find the end zone and score points that way versus this Brown team. I think Will Lutz is going to get opportunities. He's been traded to this Bronco team for a reason. Sean Payton obviously liked him with the New Orleans Saints when he coached them many seasons ago and getting them in the offseason. And they got confidence in him. So Will Lutz this week, once again at home at Denver where the ball carries as well, an extra few yards helps. So right now he's available 90% of fantasy leagues. That's a few kickers sleepers for week 12 of the fantasy football season.